Hi. This is a story from the drama of The Gifted Child by Alice Miller, a book that reveals how early emotional wounds quietly shape us for life. I was out for a walk and noticed a young couple a few steps ahead, both tall. They had a little boy with them, about 2 years old, who was running alongside and whining. The two had just bought themselves ice cream bars on sticks from the kiosk and were licking them with enjoyment. The little boy wanted one too. His mother said affectionately, "Look, you can have a bite of mine, a whole one is too cold for you." The child did not want just one bite, but held out his hand for the whole ice, which his mother took out of his reach again. He cried in despair, and soon exactly the same thing was repeated with his father. "There you are, my pet," said his father affectionately, "you can have a bite of mine." "No, no," cried the child and ran ahead again, trying to distract himself. Soon he came back again and gazed enviously and sadly up at the two grown-ups, who were enjoying their ice creams contentedly and at one. Time and again he held out his little hand for the whole ice cream bar, but the adult hand with its treasure was withdrawn again. The more the child cried, the more it amused his parents. It made them laugh a lot, and they hoped to humor him along with their laughter too. "Look, it isn't so important. What a fuss you are making." Once the child sat down on the ground and began to throw little stones over his shoulder in his mother's direction, but then he suddenly got up again and looked around anxiously, making sure that his parents were still there. When his father had completely finished his ice cream, he gave the stick to the child and walked on. The little boy licked the bit of wood expectantly, looked at it, threw it away, wanted to pick it up again but did not do so, and a deep sob of loneliness and disappointment shook his small body. Then he trotted obediently after his parents. It seemed clear to me that this little boy was not being frustrated in his oral drives, for he was given ample opportunity to take a bite. It was his narcissistic needs that were constantly being wounded and frustrated. His wish to hold the ice cream stick in his hand like the others was not understood. Worse still, it was laughed at. They made fun of his needs. He was faced with two giants who were proud of being consistent and also supported each other, while he, quite alone in his distress, obviously could say nothing beyond no, nor could he make himself clear to his parents with his gestures, which were very expressive. He had no advocate. Why, indeed, did these parents behave with so little empathy? Why didn't one of them think of eating a little quicker, or even of throwing away half his ice cream and giving the child a stick with a bit of edible substance? Why did they both stand there laughing, eating so slowly and showing so little concern about the child's obvious distress? They were not unkind or cold parents. The father spoke to his child very tenderly. Nevertheless, at least at this moment, they displayed a lack of empathy. We can only solve this riddle if we manage to see the parents, too, as insecure children, children who have at last found a weaker creature, and in comparison with him, they now can feel very strong. What child has never been laughed at for his fears and been told, "You don't need to be afraid of a thing like that"? And what child will then not feel shamed and despised because he could not assess the danger correctly? And will that little person not take the next opportunity to pass on these feelings to a still smaller child? Such experiences come in all shades and varieties. Common to them all is the sense of strength that it gives the adult to face the weak and helpless child's fear and to have the possibility of controlling fear in another person while he cannot control his own. No doubt, in 20 years' time, or perhaps earlier, if he has younger siblings, our little boy will replay the scene with the ice cream, but then he will be in possession and the other one will be the helpless, envious, weak little creature, whom he then no longer has to carry within himself, but now can split off and project outside himself. Contempt for those who are smaller and weaker thus is the best defense against a breakthrough of one's own feelings of helplessness. It is an expression of this split-off weakness. The strong person who knows that he, too, carries this weakness within himself because he has experienced it, does not need to demonstrate his strength through such contempt.